Commonwealth. And I think I really want to begin with a public apology to Secretary Buttigieg and also to President Biden, because I have been a royal pain in their ass for the last year and a half talking about this I-83 bridge. They were sick and tired of hearing me go on and on about it. But I will tell you, the Secretary listened, the President listened, and here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we are better off for their leadership. And Secretary, thank you for being here today. We appreciate you. Thank you. Because of the Secretary and the President being willing to listen to all of us here in Pennsylvania, especially our senior Senator Bob Casey and our PennDOT Secretary Mike Carroll, I am now thrilled to be able to announce that the United States Department of Transportation has awarded the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania $500 million for the replacement of the I-83 bridge right here over the Susquehanna River. Now, hear me on this. This is the largest federal grant for a single transportation project in Pennsylvania history. This is a big deal. And this is a sign of just how much the President cares about this community and cares about this Commonwealth. You see, replacing this aging bridge will be transformational for this region and for all Pennsylvanians. I-83, as you all know, is a vital artery here in south central Pennsylvania that not only connects our communities on both sides of the river, it's also a critical route for commerce and supply chains up and down the east coast of the United States. We, of course, are joined by leaders not just from here in Harrisburg, but from all across south central Pennsylvania, showing that indeed this is critically important for all communities in this region. 125,000 vehicles drive over this bridge every single day. It connects commuters to jobs here in our state capital and all across the region. It brings families to vitally important medical appointments and farmers produce to grocery stores. These trips, they grow our economy, they improve our health, they strengthen our families, and they are made possible because we have safe, reliable infrastructure here in this region. Let me also make clear, because I know there's been some chatter about this, I want to be crystal clear on this, that this bridge behind me, this new bridge, will not be tolled. It will not be tolled. I made that clear during my campaign. I was against tolling these bridges, and I continue to be against tolling these bridges. And thanks to this federal investment and the work that's going to be done here, this will be a bridge that connects families, connects commuters, connects people going to work without having to pay a toll. This bridge has been long in need of repair. It's 64 years old and it's nearing the end of its lifespan. And with the Biden administration's help, we're going to replace this bridge and ensure that this vital artery continues to connect our communities and grows our economy for decades to come. Replacing this bridge is vital for the people who drive on it. It is also a critically important project for the Pennsylvania building trades and the Pennsylvania workers, who I will tell you are the absolute best bridge builders in the world. This more than $1 billion project is going to mean more jobs for the great Pennsylvania workers, and I'm excited that they're going to get to work soon. We have all seen the incredible work that the building trades can do when they rebuilt I-95 with Secretary Buttigieg and President Biden's help in just 12 days. 12 days. Now, I have been told by Rob Baer that they may not hit 12 days, but they think they can get this done in 13 or 14 days, which is going to be amazing. And that was a joke. Please tell Rob it was a joke. Look, I think it is important to note that this is, of course, the largest federally funded discretionary project in Pennsylvania history. They're betting on these workers to be able to step up and do this job, and they will do it well. They are believing in these communities, and without the leadership of President Biden, this would not be getting done. This is what happens. You can clap for President Biden. There you go. This is what happens when we have an administration in Washington that listens to the people, that understands the needs in a community and is there to deliver for us. This doesn't happen without a secretary who has been boots on the ground, learning about the needs of a community and making sure we deliver for an area like this. And this sure as hell wouldn't happen if we didn't have a dogged senior senator who was willing to make this his priority. We have a senior senator who voted to make sure that billions of dollars would flow to infrastructure all across the United States. And he made sure that he prioritized this I-83 bridge as one of the projects he wanted to deliver on. And so while I know I've been a pain in the ass to the president and the secretary over this, the senator's a whole lot more polite than I am, but he has been dogged, he's been determined, and he has been in the ear of this administration every step of the way to make this happen. We are grateful to have our senior senator, Bob Casey, on the job for us every day, working hard and delivering. And this is yet another example of how Senator Bob Casey has stepped up to make an impact in this region and all across the Commonwealth. Ladies and gentlemen, Pennsylvania's senior senator and my friend, Bob Casey.
Thanks, Jeff. Really appreciate it. Thanks very much. Let's hear for the governor, for his leadership. I'm so grateful to the governor for his leadership in seeking this funding, but also on so many other projects all across the state. We're just getting warmed up in Pennsylvania. We're going to continue to fight for these dollars, but Governor, I'm grateful for your leadership on this and on so many other issues, including a long list of projects. We're honored by the presence again of Secretary Buttigieg. As the governor said, he's heard from us a lot, and I can provide testimony to his willingness to come to Pennsylvania over and over and over again, east and west, north and south, every region of our state Secretary Buttigieg has visited. As the governor said, he has listened to us and has spent quality time here to understand our priorities and our needs. So, Mr. Secretary, we're grateful for your presence in Pennsylvania. If you spend a little more time here, we might declare you a resident, but I'll leave that to someone else. But I'm especially grateful for not just his leadership and his presence here as the United States Secretary of Transportation, but also for Secretary Buttigieg's efforts to get the dollars out the door, to push these dollars through so we can make progress on these many projects. So let's hear it again for Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who honors us by his presence. Mayor Williams, thank you for having us on your turf again, and thanks for getting us started today in your leadership as mayor. I want to thank Secretary Carroll for his good work. I knew Mike Carroll a long time ago when he was in the General Assembly. We're proud of the work he's doing as secretary and the dogged determination he brings to his work. Drew Simpson, I'm going to introduce in a moment. He's representing not only the Carpenters Union, but I think representing the men and women of labor, union labor in Pennsylvania, and all that means. Go ahead and clap for those men and women across the state. The leadership who's here of the building trades and representing working men and women across the state, we can't thank you enough. And as the governor made reference to, it's the best workforce, the best workers in the world, no question about it. Let me just tell you a little story about how this all happened. Way back in time, just a couple of years ago, I co-sponsored a bill that became the foundation of what was later the Bridge Investment Program and the Infrastructure Bill. And I think it's important to remind Pennsylvanians and Americans, not just here in South Central Pennsylvania, but all Americans, how difficult it was to get this infrastructure bill done, which is the foundation of getting this, as the governor said, the largest discretionary investment in a transportation project in the history of the Commonwealth. But to get that infrastructure bill done and to take the idea that we had in the bill that I co-sponsored was difficult work. I want to commend the leadership and the determination of President Biden. A lot of people don't know this. He had a meeting at the White House early in his first couple months in the office, and it was to talk about the infrastructure bill and maybe one other issue. And it started as a bipartisan meeting. as my recollection, is just Republican senators. That effort collapsed after a number of weeks or a few months. He had to restart the entire process to keep engaging in a bipartisan way to get the support that we needed in the Senate and the House to get this done. So the president's not physically here with us today, but I want him to know how much we appreciate that effort. And in the end, we had every member of my party vote for the infrastructure bill. We had a smaller number of Republicans, but it was just enough, or I should say a very small number, but it was just enough to get this bill done. But that wasn't the end of it. Once you get a bill done, as you all know, it doesn't execute or implement itself. You have to have a strong commitment by the administration. You have to have a strong Secretary of Transportation to get those dollars out the door, and then you have to have a bipartisan effort here in Pennsylvania to get it done. So we had a bipartisan effort. The work that I did, the work the governor did, the work that our congressional delegation did. We got a letter sent to the administration signed by every single member of our delegation. I'm not sure that has happened on one project in Pennsylvania history, if not American history, to have every member of the delegation, no matter whether they represented northwestern Pennsylvania or north central Pennsylvania or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or anywhere in between, to get all of our voices coming together to support this project was essential. And you know what? As Secretary Cowell reminded me, this is a Pennsylvania project. It's a Pennsylvania, an entire state of Pennsylvania, 67 county priority. And we're grateful that we're going to have an investment in a bridge project that will bring jobs, a lot of good paying jobs, not just now, but in the future. It will help us transact business, move commerce, keep our supply chains running. So many benefits, not just to the people of Dauphin and Cumberland County and south central Pennsylvania as a region, but to our entire Commonwealth. So this is hard work to get this done, but we're damn proud of where we are, getting this done, to get this kind of investment. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the work that so many people here did to bring us to this day. And look, I've known Drew Simpson a long time. I know of his leadership in the Carpenters Union, but I want to make sure for today's purposes, because this is a historic day, I'm going to read you Drew Simpson's entire title. Drew Simpson, by the way, he's a Scranton, Pennsylvania guy, so I'm giving him some extra time here. But he's the regional manager of the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters, but that title doesn't capture the leadership he brings to his work every day. And I think his work and the work of his members and all the unions here are emblematic of the spirit of our state, the spirit of the workers of our state. So I give you Drew Simpson, a great labor leader, but also a great Pennsylvanian. Drew?
Good morning. Before I get started, I just want to acknowledge, while I'm here representing the men, women, and apprentices of the Carpenters Union, we have the rest of the building trades also here in the audience, and it's an honor to speak in favor of and on behalf of labor in front of this very esteemed panel of speakers that we have here today. The Shapiro administration and the Biden administration both know that in order to create economic opportunity, skilled labor needs to have a seat at the table. The Shapiro administration and the Biden administration have worked together to get a lot done in Pennsylvania in the last year and a half, including the rebuilding a collapsed portion of I-95 in Philadelphia in just 12 days, which demonstrated that government can coordinate effectively and efficiently with private contractors, organized labor to deliver for Pennsylvanians. When the eyes of the nation were on Pennsylvania, a proud and diverse group of organized labor worked through the rain, heat, and Father's Day weekend to get the job done safely and effectively to reopen I-95. Secretary Buttigieg and Governor Shapiro know the skilled labor is the best equipped to rebuild our infrastructure, and they have consistently advocated for labor to have a seat at the table to continue creating real opportunity for hardworking Pennsylvanians to obtain good-paying jobs. Today's announcement is the latest example of the effort. After working with President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg for over a year, the Shapiro administration has secured a $500 million award to replace the I-83 interstate bridge, the largest federal transportation grant ever received in Pennsylvania, as the governor has stated previously. Governor Shapiro and Secretary Carroll advocated hard for the funding and had consistent conversations with the President and Secretary Buttigieg to make this happen. Now, thanks in part to this funding, PennDOT will replace the I-83 bridge, which connects hundreds of thousands of people where they need to go every day. This is big, and labor will be involved in this process to rebuild the bridge and help make a difference in this region. Here in Pennsylvania, we are proving that when local, state, and federal government come together and work with labor, we can do big things and deliver big infrastructure wins. This also affords us and the rest of the building trades to bring in apprentices into our training centers with the language in the infrastructure bill that talks about certified apprenticeship programs. You know, we all want to fill our apprenticeship ranks, and we all want to fill our apprenticeship training centers, and this is the perfect opportunity. And the work that has been done so far and the work that will continue to be done in the state of Pennsylvania will just make sure that the opportunity for high school graduates who are not on a college career path have the opportunity to career, not just a job, a career where they can retire with dignity with the pension plans and the annuity plans that the building trades have to offer. So with that, it is truly my honor to introduce the United States Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg.
Well, thank you so much, Drew, and thanks to all of the workers that you represent. Some see concrete and steel. This administration, certainly our president, see good-paying jobs, good-paying union jobs in project after project that we're funding across the country. And no pressure, but we know that the workers of this region, along with Secretary Carroll's team at PennDOT, will be delivering this on time, on task, on budget in a way that will continue the great and proud tradition of getting things built and getting things done here in Pennsylvania. A big thank you to Senator Casey, as he said, and as several have mentioned, he was a big part of why any of this is possible, because he joined with President Biden, with our administration from day one, to make the case for a historic infrastructure package. As a matter of fact, one of my first trips as secretary outside of Washington was to Pittsburgh with Senator Casey when we were working to make the case for this. And it's all too easy now to imagine that it couldn't have been any other way. But let us remember that this bill was declared impossible and dead by commentators in and around Washington again and again and again. But Senator Casey didn't give up. So many members of your federal delegation didn't give up. And ultimately, we were, in fact, able to get it done. I want to thank Mayor Williams. It's great to be with you again, and appreciate your leadership as somebody who was also once a mayor of a proud river city that understood the importance of infrastructure. I often reflect that the job of mayor has only become more difficult and demanding since I proudly wore that title just a few years ago. But I've also reflected that it sure would have been nice back when I was mayor if the President of the United States was leading a $1 trillion infrastructure package to help our cities and towns and states build. So hopefully we are a wind at your back in that regard. Governor Shapiro has been an indispensable partner and leader in rebuilding America's infrastructure, leading by example and showing a deep understanding of the relationship between transportation projects, workforce needs, housing affordability in ways that only a great governor can bring together. Together with a number of legislators who I know are joining us, have really stepped up above and beyond what many states have done to take advantage of the federal moment with a state commitment and state leadership. I also want to say a word about recent events because Governor Shapiro spoke with great moral clarity about what happened elsewhere in Pennsylvania just a few days ago. A horrific and tragic incident, an assassination attempt against a former American president, to which there can be only one response, which is an unequivocal condemnation of all forms of political violence, something that voices like Governor Shapiro, like President Biden, and like so many who have raised their voice from across the country and across the political spectrum to say, and must continue doing no matter what swirls about our political environment. And in that context, it is fitting maybe that we are gathering today in the business of building bridges. In this case, a bridge that has long been needed, something that has been brought to my attention repeatedly by your governor and others. I was going to say you can take me off your speed dial, but some tells me I'll be getting calls about the next imperative for transportation in this Commonwealth, and I would expect nothing less. And this really is an example of how things should work as local, state, federal, county, everybody works in unison to deliver something important that no one party could do alone. And that's part of why I think none of the folks here were shy about making the case in public and over the phone about how important this project is. I want to rewind just a little bit to what it was like when we took office as we marked the worsening condition of America's bridges, the number of bridges listed in poor condition around the United States. And this state was an example. Despite real progress that had been made, this need had built up over decades, and people here saw the consequences of what happened when that underinvestment took place. As I mentioned earlier, visiting Pittsburgh in one of my first trips, I remember seeing the netting installed under the McKees Rocks Bridge in Pittsburgh to catch the pieces of concrete that would fall off of it from time to time. And that was something that was just tolerated in this country for far too long. In Philadelphia, where more than 80 bridges were in poor condition, we saw a need there too. But instead of just lamenting it, President Biden took action, and that's why I was able to go back to Philadelphia and launch a $27.5 billion nationwide bridge funding program. And then Pennsylvania delivered more reminders of why this is so important. We all remember the shock of the images of the Fern Hollow Bridge collapsing into the bottom of a ravine over 100 feet deep, and if it weren't for the providence of that being a snow day, there might have been school buses driving over that bridge at that moment. But with help from the infrastructure law and great leadership on the ground, we were able to see that bridge rebuilt in less than a year, which I thought was remarkable speed until what happened the following year, when a tanker truck crash collapsed a bridge on I-95, and your governor and your DOT, local leaders, unions, and our department and our Federal Highway Administration worked together night and day to get it reopened after just 12 days. I could keep going with examples from across the state, but the bottom line is, despite the progress that was made, there was a clear need for bridge repairs to overcome the decades of underinvestment from Washington. And nowhere is that need greater than the I-83 South Bridge right here in Harrisburg. Over 125,000 vehicles cross that bridge every day. Commuters from the area, travelers from the region, trucks from across the country. A regional study found this bridge to be, and I quote, the area's most important crossing on the region's most vital corridor. But I'm sure most people you talk to in the area wouldn't need a study to tell them just how important this is. They know from daily experience. Vehicles of a certain weight are already prohibited on this bridge after an inspection downgraded its status to poor condition. It's very possible there could be further weight restrictions and more lane closures needed to keep people safe. Now, local leaders identified the needs here over 20 years ago. The fact that so many bridges like this one were allowed to fall into this condition was a failure of Washington, the consequence of a lot of talk, including a lot of infrastructure weeks, coming and going, without any real action. Talk does not build bridges. Funding does, partnership does, teamwork does. Unions and the skilled workers they bring to the table and they bring to the site. That's how America builds bridges. And the leaders you see here and our president are delivering. And that's why it's such a delight to be here on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration to announce the award of $500 million to build a new South Bridge for I-83. It's going to meet the safety and mobility needs of Pennsylvania today and for many years to come. It's got improved widths, merges, ramps, a better design that we estimate will lead to 117 fewer crashes every single year. Reduced congestion is projected to save drivers 538 million hours in their cars and truck drivers 66 million hours over the lifetime of this bridge. And that brings me to another important benefit here, which is improved supply chains. So many of the goods that Americans count on move through the Keystone State, up to the northeast, down to the south, east to west. Over $400 million worth of goods cross this I-83 South Bridge every day. In fact, I remember back when I was mayor of South Bend, we proudly told economic development people, you know, we have the location that can get you to the most households in a 24-hour radius right here in South Bend, except, of course, for Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. That's how nationally recognized the logistical significance of this location is. So when a bridge like this gets to be a bottleneck, or worse, if it has to close or get limited in an emergency, the consequences will be felt by people who've never driven on I-83 and couldn't find this bridge on a map. It still affects them. And by the same token, when our freight networks and bridges are in good shape and projects are moving efficiently and affordably, that contributes to lower costs for American families and businesses. It's all part of an all-hands-on-deck effort that President Biden has led to fight the inflation that COVID unleashed in our economy. The hard work to bring inflation down to 3% faster than almost any other peer country included a focus on supply chains, as well as taking on corporations on price gouging and junk fees, as well as taking on big pharma and capping insulin at $35 a month for seniors. There's a lot more to do, but this is a huge step forward, and we will continue advancing hundreds of projects to benefit supply chains across the country. There are now already thousands fewer bridges on that list of bridges in poor condition than there were when President Biden arrived. And today, this is part of a round of $5 billion going out to rebuild or repair 13 major bridges of national significance, from the I-5 bridge between Oregon and Washington to the I-10 Mobile River Bridge in Alabama, to so many more. And this is part of a bigger picture that goes even beyond surface transportation. I'll be at the Port of Long Beach tomorrow for the groundbreaking of on-dock rail that'll significantly increase the movement of goods through America's busiest port. Bottom line is that America's infrastructure is finally getting better rather than worse. And my greatest message about all of these projects, the 54,000 projects and counting that are getting support through the President's leadership and through this legislation, is that not a single one of them was invented, developed, or designed at the U.S. Department of Transportation headquarters in Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. Every one of them came from a community, a county, a state, looking for a better design. We have never believed that all the ideas were going to come from Washington, but we have always believed that more of the funding should, and now, at last, it is. So congratulations to this community, to Pennsylvania, to everybody who's going to be part of this great project. And with that, I believe we have time for some questions from the podium. My colleague Kate will quarterback that process.
Questions? Raise your hand if you're with the media and you would like to ask a question. We'll start right here with Seth.
Governor Shapiro, I realize thankfully we'll never have to know the answer to this question, but if this money hadn't come, this bridge was going to get reconstructed somehow, someday, what were Pennsylvanians facing that they now don't face?
We worked closely with the Biden administration to prioritize this bridge. They heard us loud and clear. They prioritized it, and they're sending the largest federal infrastructure grant in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to get this done. We couldn't be more grateful, and we're just excited to finish this press conference so these guys can get to work fixing that bridge.
In terms of taxes, what would it have taken to get it done if we didn't have
I mean, I'm not going to engage in these hypotheticals. We asked the Biden administration and Secretary Buttigieg to step up for us. That's exactly what they did, and the good people of Pennsylvania and the taxpayers of Pennsylvania are better off because of our federal partners like President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg. And let's not lose sight of the fact that we've got a senior senator who went to work to make sure that this bill passed, that there were dollars available for bridges like the I-83 bridge. We're in a community right now where we got a senator that stepped up and a congressman who refused to go along to try to fund this bridge. So I know who I can rely on in Washington, D.C. Senator Casey, President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg to step up and look out for the good people of Pennsylvania, and the taxpayers here are the beneficiaries of it. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Marshall there.
Governor Shapiro, what's the timetable for the completion of this project? What sort of effort will this take? And do you anticipate congestion while work is going on?
So the bridge will be under construction. I'm Mike Carroll, the PennDOT Secretary, in 2026. The traffic lanes will be maintained during the construction to minimize the effects on traffic. We expect to deliver the project in 2 to 3 years.
this is probably a question for Mike. Can you talk about what this, like, the actual construction is going to look like? You say the traffic lanes are going to be maintained, but what is it going to actually look like? Because I know there's work already happening on 83 right now. I think a lot of people want to know what this is actually going to look like as it's in progress.
So the new structure will be constructed south of the existing structure, and after that is completed, the existing bridge will be removed, and then additional bridging will be completed to constitute the entire I-83, and then the ultimate removal of the existing bridge. But it's important to note that traffic will be maintained during the construction to minimize the effects on users of the bridge on a daily basis.
We're out of the motor license fund.
Well,
The remaining.
$500 million because of the BIL and President Biden, Secretary Buttigieg, and then the balance out of the Pennsylvania Motor License Fund. Yes.
Okay, back there to the local NPR.
Governor Shapiro, Mayor Williams, I understand there's a large homeless encampment nearby the bridge. How will this project impact that encampment?
We're meeting bi-weekly with Governor Shapiro's staff, as well as Dauphin County Commissioner's staff, as well as nonprofit organizations, to make sure that we put in a plan that those unhoused will not become vacant in the spot that you had indicated. We work every day with the nonprofit organization, Our Daily Bread. We are using the ARPA money to give them additional funding that they can have 24-hour services, as well as churches, Christian Churches United. They are also going to house some of those individuals who are now at that encampment, and they each will be dividing the ARPA money that we have from the federal government.
Either Senator Casey or Governor Shapiro, President Biden's been mentioned many times in this press conference, yet at this moment there's a group of lawmakers at the federal level who want to delay the virtual poll to nominate him. Can one of you speak about your feelings on that push to delay it?
I think for purposes of this press conference, I'll leave that analysis of that political analysis to the pundits.
Senator Casey, you work with J.D. Vance in the Senate. A lot of Republicans are saying that he is going to boost Trump's numbers here in Pennsylvania. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Let's just do it this way. If you want to ask questions like that, we'll do it away from this podium.
All right, thanks. That's all we have time.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, well done. We'll have more on the to-do list. Yeah, we'll see what project.